It is the largest active volcano on Earth and home to the deadliest eruption in recorded human history. But when people think of supervolcanoes, they only think of one place, Yellowstone National Park in the United Rice Krispies-shaped land of the United States. But what if I told you there are other supervolcanoes hiding around the world? What's up, guys? It's me. And today we're gonna look at some of the most dangerous supervolcanoes that aren't Yellowstone. We're all familiar with your standard everyday volcano. You know, these tall cones that shoot lava out of the top that occasionally cause problems for the people living near them. Mount Vesuvius famously wiped out the Roman city of Pompeii in 79 AD. Krakatoa killed over 36,000 people in Indonesia back in 1883. And Mount St. Helens blew chunks of Washington state to smithereens in 1980. These volcanoes are all pretty dangerous. But compared to their bigger, badder cousins, the supervolcanoes, they're just kind of small potatoes. The thing about normal volcanoes is that they only get so big before they run out of magma. But supervolcanoes, well, they don't have that problem. Instead of shooting lava out of a central vent, they eject their magma through cracks in the Earth's crust known as fissures. As a result, supervolcanoes are much larger than normal volcanoes. They can cover hundreds of thousands of square miles and they can erupt multiple times per year. And while regular volcanoes can be pretty dangerous, supervolcanoes are apocalyptic. Take Mount Toba in Indonesia, for example. It erupted roughly 74,000 years ago and scientists estimate that 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash rained down on the surrounding area. To put that into perspective, the largest recorded eruption in modern history was less than 1/70th of that size. And because the explosion was so big, the ash cloud blocked out the sun. For months, plunging the planet into darkness and triggering an ice age. Now here's the scary part. There are still plenty of supervolcanoes out there, bubbling away beneath our feet, waiting for their chance to blow. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the most dangerous ones. First up, we have the Long Valley Supervolcano in California. Located in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains, Long Valley is one of the largest volcanic complexes in North America. In fact, it's so big that it's actually made up of 3 overlapping calderas, essentially giant volcanic craters. The 3 calderas are called the Middle, South and North Lakes. And each one tells the story of a different eruption. The Middle Lake caldera, which formed about 760,000 years ago, was created by a series of eruptions that deposited 1,600 cubic kilometers of ash and rock. The second caldera formed about 650,000 years ago and is a whopping 22 kilometers wide. And the third and final caldera is the youngest of the bunch, forming just 60,000 years ago. That might sound like a long time ago, but remember, humans have only been around for about 200,000 years. So that's pretty recent in terms of geological history. Now, Long Valley hasn't erupted in the last 10,000 years, but that doesn't mean it won't anytime soon. The U.S. Geological Survey monitors the volcano closely and has reported frequent earthquakes in the area. Plus, there's a lot of magma building up beneath the surface. So it's only a matter of time before it blows. The good news is that even though Long Valley is huge, it's fairly remote. So there aren't many people living nearby. The bad news is that it's also close to Mammoth Lakes, which is home to about 10,000 people. So if Long Valley erupts, there's no telling how far the ash will reach. Next up, we have Campi Volcano in New Zealand. If you've never heard of Campi, you're not alone. Before 1991, scientists didn't even know it was a volcano. It was just a relatively unremarkable hill on the North Island of New Zealand. But then in 1991, geologists noticed that the hill was emitting a large amount of carbon dioxide. And in 1996, they discovered that the carbon dioxide was coming from a magma chamber located just 7 kilometers beneath the surface. Since then, scientists have learned a lot about Campi. They discovered that it's actually a supervolcano and that its magma chamber is one of the largest in the world. But despite all the research, scientists still don't know if Campi is dangerous. The last time it erupted was 26,500 years ago and it hasn't shown any signs of waking up anytime soon. But because it's so close to New Zealand's largest city, Auckland, scientists want to be prepared just in case. Auckland is home to about 1.6 million people and if Campi were to erupt, the city would be in big trouble. The good news is that Campi is a relatively small supervolcano. Its most recent eruption only had an explosive index of 6. For comparison, the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980 had an explosive index of 5. So Campi's most recent eruption was about 10 times smaller than Mount St. Helens. Plus, Campi isn't the type of volcano that produces pyroclastic flows, which are fast-moving currents of hot gas and volcanic matter that can travel at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. So while a Campi eruption would definitely be disruptive, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Still, it would be a major headache for the people living in Auckland. Ash would likely cover the entire city and disrupt air travel for weeks or even months. But Campi is nothing compared to our next volcano, Taupo, also located in New Zealand. Taupo is easily one of the most active supervolcanoes in the world. Its magma chamber is located deep within the earth, about 20 kilometers beneath the surface. And it's constantly churning out lava. In fact, Taupo is responsible for creating New Zealand's most famous landmark, the Rotorua Lakes. But while Taupo is a major tourist attraction, it's also a potential disaster waiting to happen. The last time Taupo erupted was 26,500 years ago. And its most recent eruption was even bigger than the one that created the Rotorua Lakes. It's estimated that 36 cubic kilometers of material was ejected during the eruption, which would be enough to bury all of New Zealand in over 1 meter of ash. Now, luckily for the people living in New Zealand, Taupo is a very slow-moving volcano. It doesn't produce pyroclastic flows. Instead, it builds up its strength for hundreds of thousands of years before erupting. So while a Taupo eruption would definitely be disruptive, it wouldn't be the end of New Zealand as we know it. Finally, we have the La Garita caldera in Colorado. This supervolcano is located in the San Juan Mountains and is the largest in North America. It covers an area of 1,200 square kilometers and its caldera is 5 kilometers deep. Like many supervolcanoes, La Garita wasn't discovered until relatively recently. In fact, it was only identified as a supervolcano in 1982. What makes La Garita so unique is the way it formed. Most supervolcanoes form when magma chambers build up beneath the surface and eventually erupt. But La Garita formed when two tectonic plates collided: the San Juan volcanic field and the Rio Grande rift. This collision created a massive depression in the earth, which then filled with magma. Over time, the magma solidified and now it's just a big old mountain. But don't be fooled by its size. La Garita is a potentially dangerous volcano. The last time it erupted was 28 million years ago. And scientists believe that another eruption is overdue. However, there's no need to worry too much. Even though La Garita is a supervolcano, it's not the type that produces pyroclastic flows. Instead, it forms lava lakes. So while a La Garita eruption would definitely be messy, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So there you have it, some of the most dangerous supervolcanoes that aren't Yellowstone. While Yellowstone gets all the attention, these other volcanoes are just as, or maybe even more, dangerous. Luckily, none of them are due for an eruption anytime soon. But it's always good to be prepared just in case. Thanks for watching. See you next time.